You're ugly, but you're still her sister, so celebrate her wedding. The groom is your ex-fiancé, but don't worry about it. Oliver's spiteful voice, intent on mocking me, made me feel sick. If this were the old me, I would have been saddened and depressed by Oliver's belittling words. But I'm no longer someone who gets pushed around by him. Huh? I don't have a sister, remember? What? It was my turn to get back at Oliver, and I began to calmly plan my next move. My name is Hannah Smith, 28 years old. I've been dating Oliver Jones, who is a year older than me, for 4 years. I used to often see Oliver around our shared neighborhood at local stores. Oliver was loud when he talked, so I could hear him even from a distance. I never talked to him, but I knew about him one-sidedly. However, my first impression of Oliver wasn't good. Because most of the conversations I overheard were his boastful talks, making me think he was someone who looked down on others. Gradually, as I saw Oliver's confident demeanor whenever I saw him, I started feeling more confident myself. He became a source of energy for me, making me feel like I could live more confidently. Then, one day at a restaurant, I ended up sitting next to him by chance. We talked a little and exchanged contact information since we lived nearby. We started messaging each other, greeted each other when we saw each other outside, and even went out for meals together. As I got to know him better, I found out that Oliver was not only bright and energetic but also serious and hardworking. I was drawn to him, and it turned out the feeling was mutual. Oliver confessed his feelings, and we started dating. Hannah, I want to be with you from now on. I think we can be a great couple, supporting each other. When I started dating Oliver, he mentioned wanting to marry someday, so I was thinking it was about time to get married. However, Oliver didn't seem very enthusiastic about marriage. We had been living together for about 2 years and knew we could make it work, so I started to think seriously about marriage. Well, don't you think we should start thinking about the future? We're almost 30, after all. We'd been together for 4 years, so I wanted to have a serious talk about marriage. Hoping to get married before turning 30. I mustered the courage to bring it up several times with Oliver. What's the rush? Let's talk about it some other time. But every time I tried to bring it up, Oliver was non-committal, always putting it off. I was getting anxious about our relationship going nowhere when one day, Oliver said he needed to talk. We sat facing each other in the living room. I thought he had finally decided to propose and listened nervously, but Oliver said something unexpected. Let's break up. I can't imagine a life married to you. What? I was shocked by his sudden talk of breaking up. But Oliver, looking exasperated at my reaction, pressed on. I'm just fed up with you. Plus, I hate being rushed into marriage. So let's just break up quickly. I couldn't help but respond emotionally. What? You are the one who talked about marrying someday. I've been waiting all this time. The shock was immense since I had assumed Oliver was serious about marriage when we decided to live together. I loved him, so his words hurt me deeply. I was also angry that he had kept me waiting for 4 years if he had no intention of marrying. As I tearfully responded, Oliver coldly dismissed me. Enough of that. Just break up and get out of the house. You need to leave. He treated me as the bad one, looking annoyed at my surprise. His cold attitude made me sad, but I realized I couldn't do it anymore with him. His heart was no longer with me. And anything I said would be pointless. Fine, I understand. I'll move out soon. I managed to calm my feelings and decided to end the relationship. Since tomorrow is a day off, I was planning to prepare for moving out, but then Oliver said something unbelievable. What? You're still planning to stay here? We've broken up. Get out now. I told Oliver that it was impossible to leave today because I needed to prepare, but he wouldn't listen and seemed about to explode in anger. I was furious at how Oliver was being selfish and not considering my situation, but I didn't want to exhaust myself any further. All right, I'll pack my things right now. Seriously, you're such a hassle. You should have said that from the start. Despite the sadness I felt from Oliver's unhidden annoyance, I left the room to quickly pack my belongings. I didn't want to come back to this house ever again, and I knew Oliver wouldn't help me with my things. Fortunately, I didn't have many belongings, so I decided to take only what was absolutely necessary and leave. Thinking about the sudden breakup and what was to come, I felt like crying again but managed to hold back the tears and continued preparing. From another room, I could hear Oliver talking on the phone. His voice was loud. Finally broke up with her. I can't wait to see you. Once she's gone, let's live together. Hearing this conversation, I realized Oliver had been cheating on me, which explained the abrupt breakup. I didn't know how long the affair had been going on, but knowing he cheated and hearing him badmouth me made me even sadder. With just the essentials, I left the house as if escaping. Afterward, I threw myself into work to distract myself from the sadness. I'm not good at handling stress, so I kept busy to avoid dwelling on the past. I chose a new place to live in an area where I was unlikely to run into Oliver, and at first, I was solely focused on getting used to living alone. Although I sometimes cried thinking about the past, I eventually adjusted and settled in. Then, I received a call from Oliver's number. After the breakup, I had deleted all his contact details and changed my own phone number and email. So I was surprised to see a familiar number. I didn't answer the call, wondering how Oliver knew my new contact information. I felt a bit scared at this moment and tried to convince myself it was just a coincidence. But then I thought, maybe he regrets breaking up with me. This idea gave me a bit of hope, so I decided that if he called again, I would answer the phone. The next day, Oliver called, so I answered. Hello, what do you want? I was nervous inside but tried to remain calm. Wondering why he would go to the trouble of finding my new contact details, I listened, but Oliver said something unexpected. Hey, you must be struggling since we broke up, right? Thought I'd want to get back together? Then, Oliver started the conversation by mocking and laughing at me. It seemed he had called just to ridicule me, assuming I was struggling after our breakup. Oliver knew I was emotionally vulnerable. During our relationship, he had always been considerate and supportive. But now he called me to harass me. I was saddened by his behavior, thinking he wanted to see me cry. Holding back tears, I said, "Is that all?" Then I'm hanging up. I refused to let Oliver see me upset and quickly ended the call. Unfortunately, this reopened old wounds, and I cried again. Following this, Oliver started calling more frequently, and when I didn't answer, he began sending emails filled with derogatory remarks about our breakup. I blocked him, but it brought me down. Not only from Oliver, but I also started receiving silent calls from unknown numbers. No matter how many times I blocked them, the calls continued from different numbers. It was creepy and only increased my anxiety. I started feeling paranoid, as if someone was watching me when I was outside. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, but I couldn't shake off the feeling, and it made me despise myself. As the days went on, I became sleepless from fear and anxiety, which began to affect my work, leading to a vicious cycle of illness and absence. Unfortunately, this led to causing trouble at work, taking more days off, and eventually being fired. The company I worked for was where I had started as a part-timer and worked my way up to a full-time position. After failing to secure a job post-community college, I juggled multiple part-time jobs, aiming for a full-time position. The president of this company was a woman named Isabella, a year younger than me. Isabella had started her own business while in college and, though still a small company, it was gradually growing. As a hard worker and a beautiful woman, she was someone I admired as a fellow woman. I respected Isabella and was overjoyed when she offered me a full-time position. Therefore, when she said she couldn't employ me any longer due to my mistakes and continuous absences, I couldn't say anything. We're still a small company, so we can't cover for you any further. I'll give you some severance pay, but I'm sorry, you'll have to leave. Recently, after receiving several reprimands for my mistakes, hearing these words made my blood run cold. Leaving here meant a tougher life ahead with no other job in sight. I wanted to make amends, but recalling my past failures, I resigned myself to the fact that it was impossible. I'm sorry for the trouble I've caused. I managed to say without breaking into tears and returned home, dazed. I had some savings and severance pay, but it wasn't much. I needed to find another job quickly, or I'd be in a precarious situation. Remembering how I had failed miserably in job hunting before, I felt nothing but anxiety about securing a proper job. This worry left me feeling so drained that I couldn't muster the energy to do anything, and the stress I had been carrying only made things worse. For days, I was just depressed at home, unable to do anything, with a growing sense of urgency and anxiety. Then, another blow came. I received a wedding invitation from Oliver. I was shocked that Oliver knew my address, which I hadn't shared, and even after checking multiple times, it was definitely from him. Dizzy with disbelief at Oliver's audacity, I looked at the invitation, feeling even more disheartened. He probably wanted to humiliate me thoroughly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have bothered sending an invitation to an ex-fiancé he had broken up with. The fact that he quickly decided to marry his affair partner, after being non-committal and evasive about marrying me, hurt even more. Thinking about Oliver made tears well up uncontrollably. I wondered what all the time we had spent together meant and felt an overwhelming mix of sadness and frustration. At that moment, my phone rang. Considering the creepy calls I had been receiving, I was hesitant but relieved to see a familiar name. It was a friend from high school, with whom I hadn't been in contact recently due to living in different places and work. I hadn't reached out after breaking up with Oliver, not wanting her to know my situation. Just receiving a call from a close friend made me feel better. And I picked up the phone. My friend immediately noticed something was wrong and expressed concern. It had been so long since someone had spoken to me so kindly. Relieved, I opened up about everything. After talking for about 30 minutes, I felt lighter thanks to my friend's support. Sorry for suddenly venting. I apologized, feeling bad for burdening her right after she reached out. My friend reassured me not to worry and then shared the reason for her call, revealing a shocking truth. The next day, I received a call from an unknown number and, to my surprise, it was Oliver. He had gone through the trouble of using a different phone after I had blocked his number. "You're such a hassle. Just pick up the phone already." "So, I'm getting married soon, you got the invitation, right?" Oliver complained as soon as I answered and confirmed if I had received the invitation. "Yes, I received it, but what are you thinking?" I asked him why he would send an invitation to an ex-girlfriend he had broken up with. Ignoring my question, Oliver began talking about his fiancé, who turned out to be the president of the company where I had recently worked. The name on the invitation was Isabella, my former boss, and someone I had admired, but now I knew she was Oliver's affair partner. From Oliver's past conversations, it was likely that Isabella knew I was dating him. I had even told Isabella that I was considering marrying him while I worked there, after my plans to become a full-time housewife post-marriage were dashed. I felt infuriated knowing Isabella was having an affair with Oliver despite being aware of my situation. Oblivious to my feelings, Oliver proudly boasted about becoming the vice president after marriage. He even compared me to Isabella, belittling me in the process. His insults about my looks and income fueled my anger more than sadness. "I'll show you my big day. You may be ugly, but as a big sister, you should celebrate your sister's wedding. Don't mind that the groom is your ex-fiancé," Oliver said in a mocking tone. His attitude and intentions angered me, but his unexpected words left me perplexed. "What? I don't have a sister? What?" I'm an only child, so I couldn't understand why he said that. Thinking I was either bluffing or lying, Oliver responded with disbelief. "Cut the lies. Just come to the wedding." Without waiting for my response, he selfishly ended the call. His self-centered nature was as evident as ever. Having already emotionally moved on from Oliver, I decided to take revenge at the unavoidable wedding. He might think he can corner me and laugh, but I was determined not to let that happen. I began preparing for the wedding day. The wedding, thanks to Isabella being a company president, was extravagant. Held in a luxury hotel, the venue was filled with friends, business associates, and executives, making the spacious hall seem crowded. The ceremony had already been conducted privately on another day, and today's gathering seemed primarily for their introduction as a couple. As the newlyweds greeted everyone, a video and photos from their wedding were shown on a screen, and the reception began. The ceremony was splendid, and the food was delicious. Although I planned revenge, I genuinely enjoyed the event. Meanwhile, the bride and groom approached me, smiling. As I opened my mouth to greet them, they started their taunts. "Long time no see. Still looking as gloomy as ever. This place really doesn't suit you," Oliver remarked, blatantly insulting me. Isabella, without reprimanding Oliver, joined in. "I got married first, sorry about that." Knowing my past plans to marry, she seemed to take pride in beating me to it, laughing at me triumphantly. When I learned Isabella was Oliver's affair partner, it all made sense why he knew my contact details and address. I had updated my information at the company, so she must have told Oliver, who then harassed me with silent calls. All the while, Isabella pretended to be concerned about my well-being, secretly mocking me. Oliver probably thought I still harbored feelings for him, which is why he was so eager to contact and harass me. But I never expected them to show such blatant malice at their wedding. Internally, I smirked, finding their overt hostility made my planned revenge easier. Seeing me silent, they continued to ridicule me. "You are a nuisance at work, huh? No one to clean up your messes now, living a life of poverty, right?" Oliver scrutinized me as if assessing my worth, taking pleasure in looking down on me. "Did you find a job after that? It must be tough with your health issues, Hannah. But we had no choice but to let you go, sorry," Isabella added, clearly pleased that Oliver chose her and that my life was seemingly in shambles. In the past, I might have believed their harsh words, blaming myself and feeling inferior. But now, having gained confidence and moved past my self-doubt, I retorted confidently. "Actually, I found a job right away. My work is going well, and my health has improved. There's nothing to worry about." Indeed, my job hunt post-resignation was surprisingly successful, unlike my previous experiences. Perhaps my assertive approach during interviews made the difference, as opposed to my anxious demeanor during student job hunts. Working in a supportive environment with kind colleagues, I no longer suffered health issues and was thriving at work. Their surprised faces at my calm response only boosted my spirit. I continued assertively. "I never imagined you two were having an affair, but birds of a feather flock together, I guess." Initially, I was overcome with sadness, but gradually, anger towards Oliver for his infidelity, and towards Isabella for dating him despite knowing about me grew. I had planned to confront them, as I genuinely believed they deserved each other. Realizing Oliver's true nature, I felt fortunate to have parted ways. My confident smile must have thrown them off. "What do you mean by being so arrogant? How rude!" Surprised that I had actually talked back, both of them frowned, apparently not expecting me to respond in such a manner. Their frustration was palpable, almost reaching a point of aggression. At that moment, someone intervened between us. "Calm down. You still lash out when things don't go your way." My friend Hannah stepped in to shield me, intervening in our conversation. I was relieved by her timely intervention, especially given their seemingly violent demeanor. Both Oliver and Isabella were taken aback. "Sis? What are you doing here? You're her sister?" It seemed that Oliver had indeed misunderstood the situation. Indeed, Hannah and I share the same last and first names, though spelled differently. When I first met someone with the same surname in high school, I was surprised to discover we even shared the same first name. Moreover, we both had lost our parents during our middle school years, so we quickly bonded over our shared anxieties and sorrows. Given our similar circumstances, we encouraged each other to persevere. Being of the same age, Oliver mistakenly thought I was Isabella's sister just by hearing my name. While the two were still in shock, I moved to execute the plan Hannah and I had decided over the phone. I connected my smartphone to the projector prepared for the wedding, and started displaying the evidence of the couple's infidelity and misdeeds on the screen, complete with audio, photos, and videos. The shocking content stirred a buzz throughout the venue. "What is this? Harassment at a time like this?" They tried to stop it but failed as the attendees, noticing their panic, became even more agitated. Hannah knew about my relationship. I had shared photos and Oliver's name with her, so when her sister mentioned her fiancé, Hannah realized Oliver had been cheating. Hannah knew her sister Isabella had a selfish nature, always wanting what belonged to others. Hannah had worked hard to earn money so that her sister wouldn't have to struggle, but Isabella used it as if it was her due. She had tolerated Isabella's whims, thinking it was bearable since they were sisters, but realizing Isabella was causing trouble for others, Hannah contacted me for confirmation. Hearing my complaints, Hannah decided she couldn't forgive them and suggested revenge. We both agreed and began investigating them, only to discover their cheating was just the tip of the iceberg. They were embezzling company funds. Further investigation revealed they were bad-mouthing me and Hannah. Especially Hannah, who was working right after high school graduation for Isabella's sake. Without Hannah's work, their future living expenses and Isabella's tuition fees would have been uncertain. Yet, Isabella mocked Hannah's efforts. "Embarrassing to have a sister with only a high school education working a bottom-tier job. Claiming she's doing it for me, such a nuisance." Shocked by her sister's ingratitude, Hannah resolved not to forgive her. We meticulously gathered evidence to unleash at the wedding. We also discovered they had badmouthed not only us but also their business partners, whose voices were also playing in the background. Their misdemeanors now in the open, the guests looked on with disapproval, and the couple frantically tried to excuse themselves. "Stop this now! Ruining my wedding like this, what are you thinking? This is my big day, you should be helping me, not this." They protested, but the guests converged on them, forcing them to face the consequences. The wedding then turned into chaos, far from a celebration. Subsequently, the wedding was cancelled, and everyone left, leaving the distraught couple behind. Due to the presence of many guests, the misdeeds of the two became widely known. This led to business partners severing ties, rapidly deteriorating the company's performance. Who would want to associate with individuals guilty of infidelity, embezzlement, and such distasteful behavior? The loss of business was inevitable. Furthermore, an employee exposed detailed evidence of the embezzlement, leading to their arrest. Though their detention was brief, by the time they were released, their company had already collapsed. For the two who loved bragging about their income and titles, and enjoyed spending money, the outcome must be tough. They no longer have any allies, having ridiculed others for so long. They had to pay a hefty cancellation fee for the wedding that was halted midway and are now living in poverty. As for me, I'm currently sharing a room with Hannah and living a happy life. Hannah was worried about how depressed I became after breaking up with Oliver and losing my job. She suggested we live together so she could help me immediately if something happened. Thanks to her, I didn't become pessimistic, and now Hannah and I live together as if we are real sisters, peacefully and amicably. I cherish these tranquil days that I haven't experienced since losing my parents.